Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this narration of the web series The Survivor Becomes a Dungeon, taken from r/h/y. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 10. Zasita, POV. His body suddenly relaxed. Midmori had been nonchalant, but by accepting his people, Zasita couldn't help but feel his anxieties washing away. Though he suddenly felt anxious again, as he felt the call's voice echoing in his mind. However, I need something from you. You may stay on my land, but setting up any supply and structures will no doubt take time and resources. If you're anything to go by regarding the state of your people, that'll be hard to get going. Zasita's mind raced, wondering what Midmori could want with an old man like him. His gaze went over to the mages and warriors as they merely shrugged. If it means my people will be safer sooner, then I will do anything. Midmori was silent for a couple of moments before his voice came through. It almost sounded like he was smiling. Good. That's a praiseworthy mindset. I need two things from you. First, hunt a flying bird for me and offer it before me. Your second task will be presented after you're done. You don't need to hunt the bird yourself, but the sooner you present it to me, the sooner we move forward. In the meantime, there are about 8 tents in the woods with bare scraps for food. You may use all the supplies from the caravan you came in on to get your people settled in. Zasita was vaguely surprised but nodded as he bowed his head lower, scraping the floor. Hey, bird. Yes, I shall bring you the finest bird I can find. Oh, great Midmori. And here, I have no real use for these weapons yet, so, hopefully, they'll serve you well. Midmori explained as 2 bows, 2 quivers, and a total of 40 arrows, an axe, and a short sword, and a long sword appeared at the bottom of the steps to the pedestal. Zasita raised his head in acknowledgement, wondering where it all came from as he stood and began to collect everything. His arms were laden with weapons as REUpload decided to pitch in and at least help carry everything down. REUpload turned to acknowledge Midmori once more. We shall take Zasita back to his people and help them collect themselves. From there, we shall make our way to the Empire to report to His Majesty. Midmori was quiet for a bit, though he responded, All right, then, safe travels. He sounded relatively cheerful as REUpload bowed her head and left with REUpload and the lizard man. The doorway grew once more as it passed before going back to normal. Midmori point of view. Well, I somehow got myself tangled into international politics. I was never one for politics myself. I was more suited to sticking a knife between someone's ribs or infiltrating a place to spy while remaining out of sight. Nonetheless, I now have representatives in this new world, which should help me in the long run. Looking over Basti, I can't see her changing much physically anymore, though I notice some movement around her manor heart. She's got one of those rings now, which seems fascinating to watch. Though I shouldn't let myself get too distracted as I let my right hand enjoy her catnap. I dole out some more mana to the cubs, the set of 4 getting a burst of energy like the kids and caffeine as they play around in that parkour nook. The grey-black boy cub even joining in this time for the mewling and roughhousing. I look around for Ururu for a few moments since he's uncharacteristically not holding his post on my pedestal steps. It doesn't take long to find him, since he's currently coiled up in a house rock. It seems the poor fellow is also tired after such a busy day. Upon closer inspection, though, it looks like he's got layers of skin slowly peeling off of him. I wonder if that's how snakes usually shed skin. It's not like I ever watched the process before. At this point, I turn my attention to myself, looking over my core after those intense waves of energy I got today. I had 3 rings earlier, but now after naming REUpload and REUpload, as well as finishing up with the thing with the diamonds, there are only 2 rings left. I also grew bigger again. Not by much, mind you, but it is noticeable. I'm still essentially grapefruit size, but with a couple more inches added to my overall diameter. In other news, it seems once my mana zombies get killed, I'm unable to bring them back once more. It's a shame, but I'm glad I don't have any useless corpses cluttering my inventory. On the other hand, the 3 that survived the last attack seem to have undergone some more mutations. The green orc seems to have bulked up. Her shoulders are now broader, and her fingers and fingernails look denser and sharper. The black-skinned elf looks more slender, yet upon further inspection, I can tell his leg muscles have been defined far more for leaping and jumping, increasing his mobility. Finally, the last human zombie. The lower jaw has clubbed off and his arms were severed. Even with all that, I can see that his throat has already developed specific mutations, along with his stomach and bile. Fascinating. Outside of those guys, I now have 15 new corpses to experiment with. Aside from most of them being more physically developed, a lot of them also have the makings of magic users, which I'm fascinated to see play out. Not to mention all their weapons and armor I can study and try to reverse engineer. If I can learn more about the armor of this world, I can probably start adapting it with some modern twists, which should only improve things for those in my care. I have a lot of work and probably enough time to do it. I hope that the lizard guy comes back with a bird soon. Those kids aren't in the best of shape, despite the requirements I set for the guy. I'd rather help them sooner than later. End of chapter. Chapter 11. Zasita Point of View. I suppose I ought to thank the gods that V.R.E is a benevolent being. However, I wonder what he wants a bird for, of all things. Zasita went and wandered the woods near the camp the others were starting to set up, deciding to get a start on V.R.E's request. After a head count, the now freed slaves were made up of 15 beastskin, 8 of which were children, a pair of dwarves, a mother and a daughter, a half-elf boy, and 3 human youths, as well as himself. At the end of the day, it wasn't a lot of people when it came to the grand scale of the theocracy, but he cursed himself for not noticing this disgusting practice sooner. Looking around, he was also cursing himself at how inefficient he was at being a hunter. He spotted several large birds of prey, glorious eagles and falcons, just soaring out of reach. The few that he was managed to sneak up on, he'd missed terribly. His old and battered arms are unable to properly handle the bow and arrows that were gifted to him by V.R.E. And the times that he can get off a shot, these eyes fail him as he's either way off or just barely missing. He keeps trying though, burning himself well into the night until a teenage rat beastskin comes to find him.
Elder, there you are. We were getting worried when you hadn't come back to the camp. Come, we've got some dinner going. A stew made with some of the mushrooms, herbs, and tubers, accompanied by dry meats, he enthused, gently taking the older man by his arm. However, he was watching the elder with worried eyes.
Sorry. I must have not noticed the day escaping me,
Zasita replied tiredly, letting out a heavy sigh.
What's the matter, Elder? You haven't explained why you've been out hunting. I understand that our food situation may be a bit precarious, however, that doesn't mean that you need to be the one going out to hunt, the rat beastskin asked, attempting to guess the reason himself.
Zasita looked over the teen rat beastskin and spoke. Your name is Remy, right?
Remy nodded in confirmation. Just happy the elder remembered his name after just hearing it once.
Well, Remy, the master of this land, V.R.E, has tasked me with hunting a bird for him. As soon as I can, he should provide us with the materials so that we can build ourselves a haven, sooner rather than later.
Remy looked surprised. His rodent ears twitched in thought as his pink rat tail curled and flicked behind him.
So that's why you've been out in the woods all afternoon and night. Why didn't you tell any of us?
Zasita looked abashed as he averted his gaze.
V.R.E tasked me with this, and there was plenty of work to be done at the camp. You didn't need an old lizard like me getting in the way.
Remy could see where the elder was coming from, but shook his head.
You need your rest to recover from your wounds like the rest of us, Elder. We were concerned, he explained,
leading him to the camp. A good-sized bonfire was going, a wolf woman stirring a pot that was still bubbling with stew as the group welcomed the duo back. Remy makes his way over to the pot and serves up a bowl of stew and brings it over to the elder with some bread, meat, and some wine from the wagons. The younger dog girl setting out some blankets for the elder to rest on. Zassiter can feel the exhaustion coursing through his body now that he's finally off his feet. He feels even more feeble than before, and figures he probably would have collapsed in the woods had Remy not tracked him down. He eats quietly, the warm soup feeling like a luxury after the last few days. Suddenly, there's a shift in the atmosphere of the camp, the adults and teens getting to their feet. A few of them collect the weapons they got, while others wield clubs from the thick tree branches.
"Prowler, and it's a huge one,"
said one of the teen humans wielding the short sword. Zassiter turns to look before forcing himself to stand as he gets between the group and the prowler.
"Calm yourselves, please. This is Basti, one of Vitmori's beasts. If she meant us harm, we would not have even seen her."
At that, the camp was still somewhat anxious, but they lowered their weapons. Basti, for her part, was relaxed the whole time, as if these people didn't even register as a threat. Once they were relaxed, she settled down at the edge of the flame light and watched over the camp for the night. The group was reasonably anxious, but they slowly got over it as they returned to enjoy their dinner before going their separate ways, dividing themselves into the array of about 20 tents. Having taken the camping supplies from the caravan to make sure everyone had something between themselves and the elements. The following day came and went, and soon it was afternoon and Zassiter began to wake. He could feel his whole body ache and strain against his will to move. Remy was right. He definitely shouldn't have pushed himself to hunt for so long, especially after climbing a mountain. It is a blessing, though, that his natural constitution has already healed most of his superficial wounds. He could see his tail growing, the faintest of nubs, where he had ripped it off the day before. Finally, with some more effort, he got to his feet and left his tent, and was greeted by afternoon's sun. The camp was abuzz with activity. Lunch being served as Remy and the wolf woman cooked up some venison from a deer and one of the other beastskin hunted.
"Good morning, Alder,"
Remy called out cheerfully upon seeing him, a few other camp members doing the same as he approached.
"Or rather, should I say, good afternoon,"
he mused kindly as he offered a plate with a fire-grilled seasoned meat and steamed tubers. Zassiter took it gratefully once more, lowering his head slightly in thanks.
"It seems that I was more exhausted than I realized. Thank you, Remy, for coming to get me last night."
The rat teen smiled cheerfully, his rodent ear twitching with delight.
"It's no problem, Alder. We're just glad to see that you're looking better."
With that, Zassiter settled down under the shade of a nearby tree to eat more. The food filled his desperate stomach, and he savored every morsel. Other members of the camp greeted Zassiter as they passed, but one of the human team stopped by and offered a small cloth-wrapped bundle.
"Remy told me you needed a bird for Vitmori. I'm sorry if this is not good enough, but I managed to strike it out of the air with my sling," she explained, unfurling a bundle to reveal a sparrow with a bloody torso. It would have been a difficult shot indeed. Zassiter couldn't help but let out a big toothy smile.
"It's perfect. Thank you for your help,"
he enthused softly, taking the bundle in his clawed hands ever so gently. The human teen smiled as she stood.
"You're welcome, Alder. Have a good day now,"
she'd said gently as she walked off. With a meal done and the bird in hand, he made his way towards the mountain and sighed, beginning to ascend. However, he was approached by Basti, who seemed to have been waiting for him. She laid down and pricked her ears, seemingly still waiting.
Do you wish for me to ride you?"
he asked in a massive prowler with some anxiety. Surprisingly, she gave him a nod. At that, he made his way over and climbed on, and as soon as he was settled in, she began to move and climb with considerable speed and care. Before he knew it, he was climbing off Basti, standing before the sculpted entrance of Vitmori's chamber. Almost hesitantly, he stepped inside, claws clattering noisily against the brick. The call's voice echoed in his mind. "Ah, welcome back. I see you were successful in your task. Good, good." Zassiter got to his knees as he approached the pedestal, with the core of Vitmori before him.
"Yes, O mighty Vitmori, I offer you this sparrow. Forgive me for not offering you a finer bird, as I had promised."
"Don't worry about it, and the bird is perfect. Now then," for your second task," Vitmari started to say, kind of trading off into Zasita's mind. Zasita looked eager, though, as he looked up to the call.
"Yes, Vitmari, what is it? For my people, I will do anything."
Vitmari was still hesitant, as it took a few moments for him to speak up again. "Good, that's a good mindset."
"Vitmari, what is the second task that you have for me?"
Zasita asks, confused by Vitmari's hesitancy. "Well, that's the thing. For the second task, I need you to, die," he finally said. Zasita was silent for a moment or two, looking surprised, before quietly whispering, "Oh." End of story. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons. Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Barky, Lord Azrekahl, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon W.R.E, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.